You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
Xavier, again, we talk about what has changed. It was only a couple of years ago in the state of Georgia. If a police officer was going before a grand jury, the officer got to sit in the grand jury. Grand jury proceedings are secret. The officer literally got to sit. And Kim, the whole point of the grand jury is be secret. You don't know who comes testify. In Georgia, for all of these years, the officer could sit there and watch anybody who testified. Hell, there's a reason why cops didn't get indicted in Georgia. He's sitting right there. But again, the law was changed when it became exposed, and that only it came about after the death of Trayvon Martin, after black voters, after Black Lives Matter, after people light began to be shown on this system and the nuances and how grossly unfair it was in terms of how police officers were being treated versus the average citizen.
Yeah, I just want to say this. The conversation around policing, police reform, sentencing, etc., I'm going to bring this back because I'd love to hear y'all jump in on this point. What we're talking about right now is negotiating the validity of the current system and whether that system and its mechanisms and levers for justice actually served it. The conversation around what George Floyd sparked across the world was one about a different model, a different system, a question around whether justice could be achieved through different mechanisms for safety. The conversation around, police getting 48 hours is still a conversation around policing. When you look at Biden's new budget around public safety and around the military, it's going up. When you look at our mayor here in Chicago's budget around policing, it's going up. When you look at the question of what was the net effect, and I'm not talking about this case, I'm talking about moves that create a higher improbability of black folks that look like us being subject to the types of experiences and potential fatal experiences like George Floyd experienced. And when I look writ large across America, that's not what I see. I don't see consent decrees being enforced where they exist. I'm not seeing them being requested or demanded by many of our legislators.
But this is why I'm saying you have to connect the dots, because a conversation about changing a system cannot overlook. You have to change the people who actually change the system. There were people who were protesting last year about the George Floyd who said, I don't believe they're going to change. That's why I'm protesting. I'm sitting there going, you can't change policy unless you deal with the people who are voting on policy. A protest in the street means nothing unless the policy changes, which means you might have to change the politicians who are voting on policy. And so I've heard that. I've heard people go, man, this nigga's not going to change, so I'm going to go protest. And I'm going, yeah, but you can't protest and not vote.
But usually when people say it's not going to change, they don't do anything.
No.
People who protest usually are saying something can change and we can accelerate that rate.
There were actual surveys done of actual protesters, and people said, this is my way of showing. They said, I would rather do this than voting. And I'm saying, okay, you can't change policy unless you either change the minds of politicians or you change the politicians. And that's why I'm saying the dots have to be connected. When I'm talking to millennials and Gen Zs, and folks are like, yeah, but I'm not quite sure, and I'm going, you can't say we need a whole new system, but keep the very same people in place who with the old system. You got to change the people who vote on the system.
It's a both and.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a both.
The streets have the power of influence. The legislators have the power of control and decision making.
Right, but the streets can also vote to boot them out and then put in people to get what you want. Kim, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're both right. I mean, I think the conversation has elevated in the last year these narratives around abolitionism, abolitionists. You would hear that and people would be like, what you talking about? What does it mean to not have police? And it is reframed a conversation of what do we think about safety? How do we define it? I think that's the point you're saying. But at the same time, while we have these conversations and we use the word reimagining a new system a lot, you need people in there with the imaginations to do it. And I'm sorry, you can't kneel on a man's neck for over 9 minutes and kill him and not be held accountable. And so the existing system that we have right now that needs to be fundamentally changed also needs to work in the way it was designed, and punitively for people that look like me and you, we gonna go to jail. We gonna serve time
for a long time.
I promise you that. People like Derek Chauvin wouldn't. And so for me, we do have a fundamentally flawed system. However, in order for us to change it, we do have to have people in those roles. They get there by the people in the streets. I've made no mistake. I sit in my seat because of the protests related to the murder of Laquan McDonald. And black people in this city who said, we can do something different. What does that look like? I wouldn't be here without that.
Laquan McDonald and right. Rekia Boyd.
And Rekia Boyd. That was the movement in the street. And so we can do that. System's still flawed, but it's not we don't have what we had a couple years ago.
Right.
And so I think it's a both and. I think it has to be, while we get to that new place, having the right people in the places we have now to fundamentally shift what we're doing.
And that's why you are seeing such an emphasis on voting.
Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
You know, Steve got all these jobs, got all this money, got all these awards. You know, he talk about God and the Lord and his wife all the time. So he was over here talking, and his wife was there, and I knew it was his wife, so I walked up behind her and gave her a kiss on the cheek. The projects in Steve came out in about 10 seconds, because he was like, I'm hearing some kissing over here. Who the hell is kissing my wife?
Well, Roland, you leaned into and you was doing here just to aggravate me, and I heard it out my ear, and I went, okay, man, I don't know who this brother is, but Essence is about to be different. And I spun, and it was the ignorant Roland Martin messing with me. But hey, man, you know how I feel about that girl. So it was quite interesting, and I had to apologize because the CEO of Essence was standing right there, and me and Roland almost turned the festival out. It would have been quite different.
Now, speaking of turn the festival, we also are always on our pocket square game. Always.
Now, I got to give Roland credit. We always battling each other for the different looks. Pocket squares is something we kind of specialize in. We try to make it. This is topping the game right now. This I've never seen. I will be stealing this look. As soon as I find the people from out of this country that he bought this stuff from, and I get a proper email, I'll be sending to China or wherever he bought Japan or Yugoslavia, wherever they made this, and I will be looking. That is hot. I got to give it to you. That's the best pocket square I've ever seen.
Now, last piece. Steve is a big golfer. I'm a big golfer. So when we gonna have this golfing brothers thing?
See, Roland, you're trying to talk me into something that you've been doing a lot longer than I. See, you've been playing golf since college.
I took it as my PE at Texas A&M in '87.
See, right there, I picked up golf after Tiger won the Masters. And then I bought a set of clubs and played with a custom set of clubs for 5 years without a lesson. I can't tell you the bad stuff I've ingrained into this swing. I just now started going over the top. I just cut that out. Okay. So, and I'm playing good though. I'm playing good for me. Well, what's your best score?
77.
That'll never happen here.
Well, Rodney Green is working with him. He's our good friend as well. But
77. I would tell you right now, I'm taking a full-page ad out in the USA Today.
All right, folks, don't forget this Friday, the virtual festival, Essence Fest Live Loud Virtual Festival begins this Friday. You can go to essencestudio.com Essence.com. The virtual festival will take place Friday through Sunday, and then, of course, it takes place again next weekend, July 2nd through the 4th. On Monday, we're going to have a recap of the first weekend of the virtual festival. Then, of course, on July 5th, we're going to have a recap of the second weekend.